didn't provide the $5 billion that we sought to get in at the end of last year. It gave $25 billion for border security, including physical barriers. And I voted for it, and it did not make it out of the House because, as is oftentimes the problem with people down here, they allow the quote-unquote perfect in their mind to be the enemy of the good. And as a result, nothing gets done. The problem gets perpetuated, and the can gets kicked down the road. And we had the opportunity to do that. I voted for it, just like I have done every single border security measure that comes up, that has come up, and that will come up. I will be a yes on.
Well, let me interrupt, though, before we go too far, though. My understanding is there's no money here, the key thing, for the wall, right?
Right, but this is not an image. This is a matter of, this is a question of whether we're going to attach these things to the functioning of the government and the government shutdown. And we have the opposite position. If you remember in the last government shutdown, the Democrats tried to shut down the government over the DACA issue. And our position then was non-budgetary items should not be factored into whether or not we fund the government. That was our position. Schumer got blamed for that, as he should have. And our position can't be inconsistent now. If you believe in single-issue legislation, which is what I'm a big believer in fact, one of the 8 government reform bills that I introduced yesterday, one of those pieces is single-issue legislation, having up or down votes on individual issues rather than having these omnibus bills where everybody's going to find something they don't like, and as a result, none of these problems get fixed.
I would usually agree with that, but here we're at a point here, this is how we've arrived at it, where you have Democrats willing to keep the government shut down because they won't do, to some of the points you made, what they've done before, Schumer, Pelosi, and others, have voted for things like this. They will not do it now because their base will not allow it. The White House, I think, and the Senate Republicans think that you're being helpful to them. They issued a veto threat immediately.
Helpful to who?
Helpful to Nancy Pelosi in this.
No, we voted for border funding before the end of the last Congress, and it stalled. It didn't survive. We couldn't even get a Senate vote on it. So the question is, we have to deal with the political realities of the situation we're in now. Nancy Pelosi has a gavel. If we're going to get border security, and Dom, I will tell you, a big part of this problem is the use of the term wall. It is causing so much division and preventing so much progress from being made because there are people that are talking substantively about the same exact thing. One's using the term wall and the other isn't, and that one word is driving a wedge that's preventing anything from getting accomplished.
All right, and I would say it's important to me, though, I would not cave in on not calling it a wall, because I think the other side has made this immoral and undercuts Republicans and others. It is a wall. A fence is too mild of a term. We're trying to protect the country. In my mind, it's a wall, even if it doesn't look like a brick and mortar wall. Would you say we should not use that term then?
I would, because when people use the term wall, I will tell you, half of the people that I talk to, including my colleagues down here, envision a brick and mortar structure across all 1,800 miles of the southern border. And the Border Patrol, the CBP, Coast Guard will tell you that what they need the funding, number one, and number two, they need the flexibility to determine, based on the sector, based on the terrain of any given sector, what's most efficient. In some places, a brick and mortar structure does make sense, particularly in certain stretches.
But let me ask you then, why do you think it's really about the idea that Democrats, your colleagues there, are saying it's inappropriate and you're not going to put this up? The president has conceded that now, that certain areas, because of terrain, you've been there and I've been there in El Paso, in certain parts you need that, other parts not. Or is it they're just going to appeal to their base to try to say, we are not going to cave in to the president, and this notion of the wall conjures up what I like. We are trying to keep people out of this country who mean us harm or are getting in here illegally.
And I can tell you that's exactly what everybody in our conference wants, Tom. But that term, I'm telling you, is causing so many problems because the political realities are, with the Democrats, that term is toxic to them. So when the president says he's not going to sign anything unless there's wall funding, and Pelosi gets up there and says, we're never funding the wall, well, what gives? And at some point, the adults need to enter the room. We need to understand that the terminology is creating a problem. Understand that during certain stretches of the border, different things are needed. Like I said, in the southern Texas border, where there's a floodplain, a brick and mortar structure makes perfect sense there because it doubles as a right. There's other stretches where fencing makes sense. There's other stretches where steel slabs make sense.
Well, no, I'm in agreement with you. That's a smart thing to say, though. But I just think I don't like the corruption of language. I don't like what Democrats are doing. They're trying to mollify this by calling it a fence, and their whole attitude toward this. Now, you know some of these colleagues that you probably trust in. Maybe they do want border security. But I don't think the National Democrat Party is on the record of absolutely wanting to do what a wall / substantial fence would do, and it's keep people out that shouldn't be coming into the country. Their base doesn't want that.
I think it's the minority of their caucus. If you talk about border security, you'll pick off enough, and I can tell you, our problem solvers are case in point of this. The Democrat members of the problem solvers, they will fully support border security if it's based on terrain and the assessment that DHS does on the border, based on what's needed. Because there are some places, and this is what the rub is for them, Tom, is that there are certain stretches where it's just barren desert, where it's mountainous terrain, where physical structures don't make sense. Heat sensors, motion detectors, infrared, aerial surveillance, that's what makes sense during those stretches. But what's causing this divide, I'm convinced, is the terminology that both sides are using, because they're using words that play to their base. And all that's manifesting from that is this cavernous divide that's just erupting in the negotiations. And I really think it's time for the adults to enter the room and to understand, bring the experts in, have them testify on the risk of the opioids coming across the border, of MS-13 gang members, of El Chapo drug lords, of all the threats, all the national security threats. Let's put the economics aside for a second. All the threats to the border, and combine that with a DACA provision. And you know, if the new speaker wants to show that she's willing to lead, you know, one of the things that she criticized the Republicans for last cycle was that they never brought Democrats to the table. Well, now here's her chance. Here's her chance to show that if she truly wants to protect the DACA kids, there's got to be a border provision. That's part and parcel of what.
But Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick with us, President Trump has said, now I'd rather he do it in a buttoned-up way, maybe from the Oval Office. He has said that he realizes that a concrete brick and mortar, I mean, I have it here in my bank of stuff at times, is not necessary. There would be places where you wouldn't have to do that, right? He's already said that.
Well, he said a lot of things on border security, and it's about, you know, that happens. But we'll tell you that I think he's very well aware of this, that when you use the term wall, you alienate the center and the left, and you invigorate the right.
But let me ask you, why would that, though?
Yeah, Larry?
You in the middle of something?
Nah, I just got all settled down now. He wants to run back out and try to get done some more stuff that we were going to do over the weekend.
Let me tell you something real quick.
What?
I'm sitting outside the house in my Ford. I went for a ride. And when I pulled up, a Nissan, it looked like a Nissan, pulled across the street. And it looks like two guys in it. One looked like he had a hoodie on in the passenger seat. I couldn't really get a good clear view of the two of them. And they sat there, and I just didn't get out of the car. I sat here and was drinking my water. And they sat there like a good whole minute or 2 minutes. And then all of a sudden they started pulling up, creeping up, and drove off, turned right, went down Cary Avenue, came up, and I seen them on the corner. And then they made a left, and they're sitting outside your house.
Oh, yeah?
I was just kind of confused.
Casing up the neighborhood, maybe.
I don't know. I was thinking maybe they were lost looking for an address.
Yeah, because it goes to the other side of the road a lot of times, and people don't know.
But they look like they pulled right up behind your van, or close to it.
And what color's the vehicle?
It's either black or dark blue. There are two people.
Did you go in? No, they're sitting outside, I think.
They're in the car,
yeah,
right?
One's out there. Yeah, yeah.
Because I see somebody just came out of the house up on the corner and looked like they're getting in a minivan or something.
I swear they're dealing drugs out of the corner that Hills is going to court with.
Well,
I got a feeling their kids are doing it, and they're just so involved with all their bullshit in life.
Yeah, that's true. They could be blinded. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, they don't even have enough sense to have a post office box around at the
Yeah.
yeah. And something's always going on with their mail. All right, I'm glad you called. I'm gonna wait and see what happens now.
Okay. I'm just sitting here looking down because I gotta park our car yet, but I'm just wondering if they're going to pull out or. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
All right,
bye.
Here. Securing that border is a big component to the opioid fight. There's nobody that wants that border secured more than me. But I realize that we have to be mindful of the approach because everybody's a human being and the language we use matters. The words we use.
Well, it does. It is very important to me. But again, and I understand what you're saying, and my compromise would be, and look, we know the president put it out there in a way during the campaign that's more effective. We get all that. A large part of it, or substantial part of it, is going to be a wall. And I don't think there's, I could not cave in on that.
And that's fine to say a certain portion,
right.
But that's not the impression that's being given. And depending on the reporter and the day and the question,
right.
The answer can change, unfortunately. But the reality is that if we use the generic term operational control of the border security, and part and parcel to that is a brick and mortar structure in certain sectors, a fence in certain sectors, steel slab in certain sectors, pure technology in certain sectors.
How you been, Will? She said you ain't been feeling good? Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah. They were directly across the street, and I don't know if they was looking at the house on this side. Okay. Yeah, I seen them climb up the grass. Yeah. She said you were puking too? Really? Blame the schools. the schools. The kids are bringing it home. All right, well. I go home and get some lunch. All right.
Democrats are part of this problem solvers group, which is fairly significant numbers of people, that they just can't abide the use of the word wall. All right? Language, always with this, it has to be a wall